What's up, guys? Wero here. So today we have a special guest, Nyousha, and I'm going to attempt to say her last name, Nakhjiri, I believe. She's going to either correct me or tell me I did well when she comes in. But she is a Canadian boxing champion, and let's bring her up.
Hey,
What's up? So, did I pronounce that properly?
pretty close, pretty close.
Close.
Nakhjiri, but yeah.
Yeah, okay. I don't know. I don't know if I can do that. But and you go by Nye, correct?
Yeah,
Just NY? Okay.
yeah,
Dope. So, for anybody who doesn't know, she's a Canadian boxing champ. You live in Vancouver, right?
yeah.
Yeah. And we met her, Street Beast West Coast, and I met her through Jade. You guys all know Jade. Jade's a boxer out of LA that we interviewed almost a year ago now at this point. It's been several months. So, and I, like we discussed earlier, this is a casual podcast getting to know fighters beyond just their fighting, and it, yeah, we just kind of start from the beginning and talk about you pretty much. So, where were you born?
I was born in Iran, so
Iran.
not
Okay.
Canada. I moved to Canada with my family when I was 11-ish. So, um, yeah, Iran, Tehran, like I don't know, crazy stuff's going on there right now, but
Yeah, it's
um,
absolutely nuts.
yeah. So I didn't move to Canada till like grade six or something, and
Hmm.
I first 3 years I lived in Calgary. Then now like the last I don't know 10 or 11 years I've been in Vancouver.
So, how old are you?
I'm 25.
25. Okay.
Yeah.
Because that was definitely a question I got quite a bit. So,
Really.
yeah, you. When did you say you moved from Iran to
The I was 11, so that's like
11?
13,
Okay.
13 years ago or so.
Do you remember growing up there,
Oh
like
yeah, for sure.
clearly?
I,
Okay.
I might have been 12 actually, now thinking,
12.
but yeah, I do. I went to, elementary school there all the way till like grade 5 or 6. So, definitely remember a lot. I still have, you know, um, a few friendships that I'm like in touch with and stuff.
Hmm.
And yeah, no, I remember a lot. It's different than I remember. I visited once, a couple of years later, or no, actually, I visited twice. Last time I visited was about 5 years ago, and it's so different. The perspective as an adult versus
Hmm.
when I grew up there, because like you don't really know about much that's going on there until you've kind of grown up a bit.
Till you kind of look at it from the outside.
Yeah, and also like there's a lot of repression and stuff
Hmm.
for women especially, so you don't get to fully experience that till you grow up a bit. That's pretty much why my family decided to move.
Right.
Like for me, till like 12 or so, you have to wear like headscarves, and you have to wear like you can't really compete in sports at a high level. Like you're pretty limited if you're a woman.
Yeah.
um
Sounds like you're very limited as of to what you can do. You're kind of just there.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So I think that's why my family decided to just move, and we were lucky enough to be able to. So um we ended up here.
And why the locations you went to? Did your family choose Canada for a specific reason, or was there?
Honestly, no, because a lot of my mom's side of the family, they live in England, like Manchester, around those parts, and my dad's side of the family, they all live in Arizona, which I haven't been yet, but um, yeah, I don't know. My family just picked Canada, neither the States or the UK. I think it's just because um it seemed kind of like a good in between of the two, and kind of people seem nice from the outside. That's what Canada seems like. I
Yeah,
feel like
yeah, they're known for
if
being
you're gonna
nice.
like
Yeah,
if you're gonna go pick somewhere to live, like you're probably gonna go somewhere that's like open to immigrants and that type of
yeah.
thing. So
Are the differences between Iran and Canada like complete polar opposites? Is it just absolutely nuts as far as the differences go?
yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. It's not. It's a different world. It's not even comparable, really. Like, not that like growing up in Iran, like, not that I had a bad life. It's just
Hmm.
different. Like, I went to an all-girls school in Iran, and like, because it's all separate, girls and
Yeah,
boys, and like, I
separate.
went to like, I had to literally pretend to kind of be a boy to play in team sports with other boys, because girls didn't have like high level team sports. So I was literally a
Yeah.
boy playing for soccer teams and whatnot.
So did and excuse me if I'm being super naive about it, but did your parents dress you up as a boy so that you can go play boy sports, or did you
No,
just kind of
I mean,
sneak on?
they didn't dress me up. Like, I didn't hit puberty till like way later, so I kind
Gotcha.
of could pass, and I went through a bit of a
Oh,
yeah, like I went through a bit of a tomboy stage too. That like, you wear a t-shirt and shorts, and you can kind of just like
blend in. Yeah.
blend in
So
a little bit. But I did cut my hair really short at one point,
mhm.
so that did help.
I fuck with it. So if nobody asked, you didn't volunteer any information. That works.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like, yeah, I mean, if I probably wouldn't have passed like if I was a little bit older. Um, but being at that age, it was pretty easy to blend in. It was funny because like I don't think I was even aware of the fact that that's what I was doing. I was just kind of blending in, and
Hmm.
um like I remember at my brother's birthday parties or something, we would kind of my family would throw it at like a soccer field, and everybody would be playing soccer. And like some of my brother's friends' parents would be like, "Oh, are you guys like twin brothers?" And I would just be like no, but just kind of go with it. I didn't really care.
Yeah, especially if it got you to play some sports. So soccer, it sounds like you played. And then what other sports were you in when you were younger, before you guys moved?
Mm, I tried a bit of everything. Like, also, it's not to say that there aren't female sports. It's just like you can play sports. It's an option as a kid, especially.
Hmm.
And in schools, like we still had gym classes, but at a competitive level, there's like it's just not really culturally like
Accepted.
set. So yeah, or to accept it. So most girls do arts and other stuff, and like sports are more for the boys. So like at a higher level, if you want to compete and if you want to be really good, like there were girl soccer teams, but it was like a joke to me. So
Yeah.
that's why I
Yeah.
played for the
So
guys team.
did they? Did your parents decide to move specifically because you wanted to entertain sports, or were they going to move anyway, and that's when you picked up?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't start boxing until way, way later, but I played, and sports weren't a driving factor at all. It was more so just like having more options, because in Iran, your limits are, you become, you go to school till fucking forever. You finish high school and you go to college or university and like get a bachelor's, and like usually there's not gonna be a job, so you just keep studying and get
Yeah.
a master's, and you keep studying and get a doctorate, and then hopefully you can become a doctor, engineer, or lawyer. That's kind of it. Um, you don't have many options outside of that. Like, and obviously, like, there's a lot of other economical issues, and there's a ceiling for what you can do with your future. So that was kind of the driving factor for my parents moving away.
Gotcha.
That, and also like the political stuff with Iran. Like, all the oppression of women and basically, I don't know how much you know about the stuff that's going on right now, but
I know the
it,
main points. I know they
yeah,
just announced that no more schooling for women. I don't know the
that
details in that, but I know there are some there.
I don't think no, that's not Iran. That's Afghanistan. Luckily, we're not there,
Afghanistan.
but
Okay.
yeah, yeah. But Iran, it's like it's like there's like morality police, and you can like go to jail for like not wearing like you have to follow certain religious rules, and even if you're not religious.
Okay.
Um, so it's just you don't really have the freedom to choose what you want to do with your life or your body or yourself. So that was kind of why my parents decided to move us, just to kind of give us more opportunity growing up. But sports, my dad was an athlete when he was younger, so he made sure to put me in a lot of different sports growing up. But soccer or football, we call it, as Persians like, um, that's like religion there, that everybody loves soccer.
Yeah.
So that was definitely my main sport growing up. Even moving to Canada, I played all throughout my, you know, middle school and high school years, and then
Hmm.
um, along with other sports, but soccer was the main one. And then it was like after high school that I got into boxing.
Okay. And we are going to get in that in just a minute. We just have a couple more questions. Let's see, right here. Do we discuss the name origin? So where your name comes from and what it means? Because I mean, obviously, most of us don't hear. I've never heard that name before.
Yeah,
Nyousha.
Nyousha. It's a Persian name. Persian is the same as Iranian, by the way. But it's a Persian name. But I also have a Russian background. My grandmother is Russian, even though she was also raised in Iran. But
Yeah.
she's Russian and she spoke Russian. So um, uh, Nayusha is a name that is in Russia too. Like it has Russian and Persian origins. I don't actually know what it means in Russian, but in uh, Iranian it means like I think it means something along the lines of wise and like um, I don't know, like
I
all
would just tell people
knowing.
fighter. I would straight up just tell people. It just means
Yeah.
fighter.
Well,
But yeah.
actually, my last name in Persian it means hunter, so there's that.
Yeah, that's perfect. So, yeah, you're younger, growing up in Iran, and I didn't know that was Persian. I didn't realize Persian was the same thing.
Yeah.
I
Well,
thought that was
like
a whole different place.
yeah, no,
So,
it's the same. If you hear Persian or Iranian, it's the same thing. It's just like Iranian is probably a bit more technically accurate, just because like the Persian Empire and stuff, we all come from that, but it's been invaded and there's all kinds of history there. So
yeah,
apparently,
I can
like
imagine.
Iranian is more accurate, but it's the same thing. Like I'm still Persian origin.
So, you guys move, and when did you start getting into boxing? Let's talk about your boxing career right now. How did you even decide that you wanted to start boxing, and how old were you when you got into that?
So I started quite late. I was 18. Late as in like, later than some. But I was 18, I was out of high school and I was kind of going through a bit of a like lost period of like not knowing what I wanted to do.
Yeah,
And as with a lot of high school kids and whatnot, I played soccer at a high level, like up till almost the end of high school. Got a little bit of an injury in my knee, so I had to take a little bit of time off. But when I could go back, I was kind of just like, nah, because like I only really did it because, or was continuing with it because I was good at it, not necessarily because I was super passionate
yeah,
about it anymore. So I stopped playing as much soccer, and then I was kind of going through like a bit of a party phase. I wasn't the like I was a bit of a rebellious teen, as some would say. But
Yeah.
I mean, not overly or anything. But my last couple years in high school, I kind of just like partied and like went around, and I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. Like I was a smart kid, but at the same time, I was like really easily distracted and easily like couldn't really pick something to do with myself. And also, I've always been super ADHD, so even though I never knew that until I fully grew up, but I couldn't really sit behind a desk. I couldn't really focus if I had like a desk job. Like I did get an office job after high school for a couple years, and like I hated it, and it was the type of job that I could have like stayed at and climbed up the ladder and just spend the rest of my life doing. But I kind of just once I started boxing, I stopped that because I just kind of transitioned my whole life into it. But how I actually started boxing was like a bit of time after high school. I hadn't been competing in sports for a bit, so I was going through a bit of a rough period, like not knowing what I wanted to do and not being active because like I'm such a competitive person that I feel like I always need to be competing to be happy. So I figured I'll try some different stuff. I did yoga for a while. I tried to like I did get really into that. It was good in some ways. It helped me kind of be able to like be still for a minute because like I'm always fidgeting and trying to move. But yeah. So I got to a point where like I was like, this is great, but it's not really me. I need to do something more exciting and not, just sit still. So like, what sport haven't I tried? And I was kind of just like thinking of getting back into something active. Oh, also, I had a really bad car crash in that period of time, like after high school. That I was like really, yeah. So I was really lucky to survive it. Like I flipped my car and stuff. So it was kind of after that, like I was a bit depressed. I was a little like just partying and like wasting my time.
Did you do hospital time?
No,
For
I
your
mean
accident?
just a couple days, but it was more so
Days.
like, yeah, I was just like bruised everywhere and like cuts and stuff everywhere. It was like shallow injuries,
What happened?
nothing.
What happened?
So I was like driving my car. Yeah, I was not the safest driver. I was a
No.
little bit reckless. I was driving like you guys do miles like that. I don't know what this is in miles, but like 210 kilometers,
Yeah.
probably like
210 kilometers an hour.
it's like
Yeah.
170 maybe miles. I don't know. Anyways, I was going really really fast down this highway, and there was an oil spill which I didn't know about, and my car hit a little bit of a curve, and it started to slide, and it was like 2 a.m. so there was nobody before that curve, but then all of a sudden there was like a bunch of cars, so I couldn't just like maneuver my way out of everybody because there was like a few cars in like all three lanes.
Yeah.
So I had to block, so I did have to like slam on the brakes, and my car just like drifted around in the highway, and then it hit a curve, and it flipped, took down the light pole, and then it just like dropped off the concrete to the side, like, and it was like luckily past this big bridge, because then I would have definitely died. But it was like a 15-foot drop, and
So
I just like kind of
you rolled your car at 170 miles per hour. I got it. You say 223. What is I got to know how fast that is in miles per hour so I can.
It was like 210 kilometers. Yeah, I can like let me know.
Yeah, that's 138 miles an hour. That is insane that you rolled your car at that speed.
Yeah.
At like
I mean,
18, 19 years old. That's nuts.
yeah.
What kind of car was
Definitely.
it that it even does 130 miles an hour?
It was a Jetta, and I mean, yeah, I was a
That's
sport
funny.
mode, like, standard, like it was my first car, but I love that. I used to drive so fast, and it was like the last owner had a bunch of like work done to it, so it could actually
It moved. Yeah. Well,
yeah,
obviously,
and
it was doing
yeah.
138.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I mean also fair play, like Volkswagen, really good built for the car, because like the
The safety
paramedics and stuff.
features.
Yeah, for real. Like
Yeah.
the paramedics were like, if this was like a Toyota or something, it would have been like crumbled to nothing by now.
Yeah, that's nuts. And you only spent a
um,
couple days in the hospital, so obviously you had your seatbelt on.
yeah, I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, the car, like the where the hole hit it was
Mm-hmm.
like in the back seat. So that part was just like crumbled and it was destroyed, but like the front part, like luckily it didn't hit anything massive. It was only like the drop, because like when I dropped, it was on the driver's side, so I kind of just like blacked out for a minute and then came to, and there were a bunch of other cars stopped, obviously, because they saw this, and I was down this like, and my car was like in all these trees and stuff, like 15 feet down. So all these people, and it was making this insanely loud noise, like from the engine or whatever. So everybody
Yeah.
was like, "Oh, what if it explodes?" Like it didn't, but we we don't know. And
That's
like,
still a hell of a story. That's nuts.
yeah, and all these guys that were like kind of just like holding each other's hands to try to reach down to my car and like open the door because it was stuck. And they kind of just like pulled me out, and I just like sat bloody on the sidewalk until like the fire trucks and all that one came. So I was
So,
okay then. Nothing broke, nothing. It was just like blood from the shattered glass and like bruises.
so you roll your car at 138 miles an hour off a cliff, off a fucking cliff, and then you get out and you're like, I think I'll start fighting people now.
You know what? Like I think that triggered something, because like I was
It did.
already I
Yeah.
was already going through like a lot of like ups and downs, and it was just like a
Mhm.
really weird period of my life where I was like confused with like what the fuck I was going to do. Um and also like I didn't have the best influences, like I didn't have like necessarily the best group of people around me, so it was just kind of like fitting into the crowd and like partying with the friends that I had at the time. So like I
Yeah.
needed to kind of just like do a bit of a life shift to something healthier for myself. And I was like, okay, I haven't been active in a long time. And then I need to get back into doing sports of some kind, get myself back into shape, because like I
Mhm.
was feeling like I was coming out of shape, and like hanging out and like going to all these parties and stuff, and like socially smoking and like smoking weed and smoking cigarettes and drinking a lot. And it was just like this isn't like, especially the cigarettes part. It was like I grew
Yeah.
up in a house where like my parents hated that shit so
Yeah.
much.
Cigarette, weed, and alcohol we work with,
Yeah,
but the
yeah, like
tobacco is
that stuff.
nasty. Yeah.
I know, like weed and alcohol, like once in a while, like even even as an athlete, if you're like not fighting anytime soon, like I have no issues with it if it's like really controlled. Like I personally have like a 4 week rule, like no weed, no alcohol, nothing before any fight. If it's a bigger tournament, like even longer, like six
No, I feel
weeks
that.
or
I
so.
have I have a 4 hour rule. So it's four
But
hours, no drinks or alcohol or anything, at least 4 hours before a fight, so I can sober
that
up.
works.
Yeah, it does not.
Fair
It
enough.
does
You
not work at all.
probably
It does not work at all. I get fucked up all the time.
yeah, you
Yeah,
probably want to give yourself like maybe a day or two, but
for a day or two.
pretty
So
sure. But
your oh, go ahead.
no, I was just saying like yeah, once I kind of had like a reality check, and I'm like, okay, I don't want to be um smoking and stuff, and I was like, I need to get back into being active, and I need to like kind of get my life together. So I kind of just like stopped hanging out with like that certain group of people, and I just like started to get close to a lot of other people who were like a lot better for me in
Yeah.
hindsight. And then I was like, what sport can I try? And one day I was like, watching a Muhammad Ali fight. Not watching it. I didn't watch boxing, but I just like was like looking at whatever was on, and there was an old Muhammad Ali fight. And I just started watching, and I was like, I wonder if there's like if boxing is like a thing now. Like I didn't even know. I was like, I wonder if like it's you. I wonder if I can box. Like in Iran, it's like there's no female boxing. Period.
No, yeah.
It's not boxing's not even a sport that you hear about.
Yeah.
So I was like, I wonder if I can try this. It would be kind of cool. And like, I was like, maybe I can learn some self defense, and maybe I can just like get into shape. Not that like, you know, relative to like growing up as an athlete and then just like having a year or two of just partying and whatever. So I just Googled boxing, and a gym showed up like that was like 15 minutes away from me. So I was like, I'll just drop in for a class and see what happens. And like 6 months into that, I decided that I wanted to fight. And then once I decided I wanted to fight, it wasn't even like, I think it was like 3 months in or 4 months in that I started to spar. And like within 2 sparring classes, I still smoked cigarettes at that point, which is awful. But
Boo.
I know. And then I did like 2 sparring sessions. I did 1 sparring session. I didn't smoke that much, but like it was here and there, enough that I bought packs, you know, instead of like just grabbing one off of people.
Yeah.
I'm not proud of it at all, but 1 sparring session I was like, fuck that, and I just like threw it away, and I never like smoked again. I was like, I thought I'm in good shape at that point, but sparring and once you fight, you realize that like you're not in good shape. Like even when I played soccer and like even when I played soccer and I went out for a night or like smoke a joint with my friends or whatever, I could still go roll up the next day and be totally fine. Like worst case scenario, if you're a little tired, you just pass the ball. You can't do that in boxing when there's someone like trying to punch you in the face, take your head off. So it was like, okay, no, fuck all of that. I quit smoking, started living like a way healthier life, and then it just kind of shit started to happen.
So you decided you wanted to level up in that game a little bit, so you made the appropriate decisions to do so. And 3 months in, you said your first couple sparring matches. How long before your first fight, and how did that first fight come about? Like, how did you decide, you know what, I do want to compete? And your gym, is it the same gym you're at now? Did they set it up? Okay, same gym.
Well, I was really lucky that the gym I joined, like, the gym's grown a lot with me, actually. Like, at the same time that I've been growing as an athlete, the gym's been, like, you know, it's grown to have a way better fight team and a solid system for the fighters. But at the time, like, it was just the closest gym nearby. When I tried the class, like, there was no thought ever in my head that I would ever spar or fight. I was just like, let me try a class, let me punch a bag and like get my fitness back and all that. And then once I started, it was like a couple months in, and like one of the coaches, this like old-fashioned guy, Andy, he was like, you kind of like look good, you're looking decent, like technically. Like he started to like notice me, and he was like, do you want to spar? And it's this like old Greek dude who's like, he's a G, I love him, he's dope. But he was kind of like also a little bit like, yeah, no, you're too girly, like you're not gonna spar, like you're just like leave it for the guys. And he would just kind of like give me shit like that here and there. So I just kind of one day I was like, okay, fuck it, I'm sparring just out of spite. So I like decided to do a class. And by the way, this is like a really big gym. This is literally the biggest boxing gym in Canada that I went to. Griffin's Boxing and Fitness. It's my head coach Dave. He's the owner of the gym, and it's the biggest boxing only gym, right? There's a lot of big like MMA gyms or like
Yeah.
multiple combat sport gyms, but this is the biggest boxing only gym.
Pure boxing gym.
Yeah, and it's like there's a bunch of different systems. Like we have like a box fit system where it's like fitness boxing classes, and then there's like box tech system where they've actually kind of like made this karate rap system but for boxing. So like the classes are separated by levels, and the levels
Yeah.
are like determined by the wrap color that you have. So it's like white, yellow, green, blue, red, black. So
Huh.
but
That's cool.
it's
Never heard of that
it's
before.
a genius like business strategy too, because like
Yeah.
first off you kind of work with the people your own level, so it's less intimidating, and also like every time you level up you have to like test, and then you get the new wrap color and whatnot, and then you have to get to a certain wrap color to spar and a certain wrap color to fight, and then at a certain point you're allowed to like, so we have our box fit series of classes. Box tech is the one with levels, and then there's the fight team, which is like relatively a really small percentage of the whole membership. Most people come and like it's either for fitness, and then I joined box tech because I was like, it's a bit of fitness too, but it's also like you're learning the technical side
They
of
teach you how to
things.
fight. Yeah.
Yeah, so I decided to go into that, and then I just like went with it, and I tested to like green or yellow, and then I tested to green, and I think it's like blue where you could spar. Yeah, when you get to blue wraps, you can spar, and then that coach kind of just like kept giving me a little shit, and he's like, "Oh yeah, you wouldn't spar too early," so I just tested to blue, and I was like, "Fuck it, I'm doing some sparring just to kind of prove a point." And normally what they do is like your first couple of sparring sessions, like they'll put you with somebody and they're like, okay, work the jab only, like 1-2s, whatever. Andy, bless his soul, he put me in there with some girl like 60 pounds heavier than me, and he just like was like, okay, go. I was like, what? Excuse me? Because this girl's been like sparring for a long time. She's like massive compared to me. I'm like 114 pounds, so not very big. But I mean, I spar like way bigger people
Yeah.
even now, but it's just like for
Did
my
she
first
tune
spar.
you up a little bit? Did she tune you
Yeah.
up that first time sparring a little bit?
So that's the thing, because like we went just like open sparring, and like first round, I don't think she like really caught me with anything even like to my face or anything, because like I had my guard, like I knew how to defend, I knew that much, but she just like kept coming at me and like throwing and throwing, and I was like so overwhelmed, so I did like fall back. So technically knocked down, but it wasn't from like a punch, it was just from like a multitude of like getting pushed
Fumbling.
back and all. Yeah.
Footwork.
And
Footwork. Yeah.
yeah, and then that was like the first round, so I got up, and Andy's kind of like, oh shit, like he's like, yeah, um just he was like, just go, you gotta like not be timid, just hit her back. And I was like, okay, well, I'll try. And then the second and third round, I went in there and I tuned her up. Like, it was actually really satisfying. I was like, what? Like,
Yeah. So the first round you get tuned up, and the next two you came out. Yeah. That
yeah, and
definitely is
then
satisfying. Yeah. Sure.
yeah, so after that, I decided to show up the next day, and Andy's kind of like, that coach was like, oh, I didn't think you would come back, because like, yeah, that was a pretty rough start.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, but it ended okay, so
Yeah.
here we are.
But you did. Yeah, and you did come back, and then
Yeah,
eventually you started taking it very seriously. And
yeah,
then you
pretty
did
much.
your first fight.
Yeah, so pretty soon after that, it was like the fight team trials to like get on the Griffins fight team. So I decided to do that, and then once I did, the first, because Dave, the owner of Griffins, he puts up a bunch of shows, like club shows hosted by our own gym each year, like more than any other club like in Vancouver or Canada, because he kind of just like wants to keep his fighters active, which is great. so he had a show coming up like not even like 2 months after I joined team, and he was like, "Okay, well now you got your debut," and I kind of just like, "Wait, what?" Like at this point, I'm still so new, and it's like it didn't really feel real. But then I just decided to go with it, and honestly, I think what made me stick to it was just like how hard it was, because like so far every other sport I'd done, I picked up relatively easily. Um, and then for this one, I had to really work my ass off to get decent. And both like in conditioning wise, like lifestyle wise, like um,
How
you
are the
know,
nerves?
oh,
Like, yeah, before your first fight, like that's one of my favorite questions to ask people because I get a lot of different answers all the time. How did you deal with the nerves
oh
before that
yeah,
first fight?
I I still suck at this, by the way, but I mean I'm a lot better now. But
Yeah.
my first fight, I was like so nervous. I was like, what if like there's this like big ass staircase in our gym, and I was like, okay, what if I just like trip and fall down these stairs, and then I don't have to fight? Like fight has to get canceled. I was like, there's
You were
I'm
going
like
to throw yourself down a flight of stairs so you didn't have to do your first fight. That's
I,
that's
I
rough.
was nervous. I was like, I saw
I'd
the
say
girl
so.
come in, and like I didn't even know this. My coach didn't tell me, but like she was already like 6-0 or like 7-0. She had a bunch of fights, and she was
Yeah.
like two weight classes. She was tall. She was like way bigger than me.
Hmm.
She was a couple weight classes heavier normally, and like yeah, 7-0 or something like that. So she was like considered really good in the province, but I didn't know anybody at that point. So I
So they set you up with somebody who had over, half a dozen fights already.
Yeah. Well, like I think the thing is like they wouldn't put me in a mismatched situation where like I would get my
Uh,
ass kicked, but I was doing really well, and like I think it was a case of like my coach knew I could handle it,
yeah.
but if I had known that's the case, I would have just like straight up been way too nervous to do
Yeah.
anything. Like
So how did that first fight go?
I just destroyed it. Like I was so nervous going into it.
Yeah.
I didn't think I could like go in there and perform or do anything. I just like felt frozen. And then once the bell rang, and like within the first like 5 seconds, I was like, okay, like go.
Do
And I
your
just
thing.
like
Yeah.
went, and I beat her up. I felt like it before the fight. I felt like literally the hardest thing I would have to do to just like go in there and fight in front of everybody. And I also have never been like a comfortable under the spotlight type of person.
Hmm.
So it was also like the nerves of I wasn't so much nervous about like getting beat up. I wasn't worried about getting beat up because I was like sparring guys who were like way heavier than me. Like my sparring partners were pretty much only dudes. It was like a big gym, and like out of 20 people or like 16 or 17 people to spar, there was only one other girl, and she wasn't
Yeah.
good. So I would have to spar the guys. Um, so I wasn't really worried about getting hurt. I was more so worried about looking stupid in front of everyone, like I don't understand,
Yeah.
or like losing. So um, yeah, once I won and like very like decisively, it was pretty much like the most rewarding feeling I've felt ever. And then that's when it was like, okay,
That's when you're
there's
super hooked.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Did you have? So I've watched several of your fights, and you were super fucking fast. Like, if nobody, if for people watching, if you haven't watched some of her fights, she's very, very quick, and I think your speed is definitely puts you above most of your opponents just from the gate. Is that something you noticed you had from the beginning, or is that something you had to build? Was that speed natural?
Um, I think I did have it from the beginning, but it wasn't really paired with good technique.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like for example, I learned footwork pretty easily because of all the years I played soccer. Like
Yeah,
when you
makes
do like
sense.
ladder drills all the time, when you do like quick like steps and like in and out type stuff with soccer, like it does help you. Not just soccer, but like having a background in like a lot of different sports like basketball, soccer. Um, it teaches you, or like it gives you a good background to learn footwork with for boxing.
Yeah.
So I could move my feet, which was a good start. But like having that coordination of like connecting hands to feet, like obviously like it takes years to like, you know, get
To
your
hone that.
technique up here, yeah, right? Like so
Yeah, for sure.
I think I was fast, but I couldn't necessarily use my speed to my advantage as much as I would have wanted to, because like it was still a little choppy and like not fully
Yeah.
connected.
Okay, so you had a natural ability that you had to figure out how to utilize in boxing. That makes sense. Makes sense. So you you take your first fight. You absolutely demolish this girl. You realize this is your new passion. How did you? Is that when you pretty much immediately set up like I'm going to hold a belt sometime, or were you just kind of one fight at a time? Let's see where this takes it.
It was more so like a one fight at a time. Let's see where we go. I just felt like I'm going with the flow. I was a part of this team, and like I had found this like awesome community of people that like became like my family like really soon. Because boxing like is such a like individual sport, but the community most of the time, if you go into any boxing gym in the world, it's usually the same. Like people just like they take you in and they're like you're like one of us and you're part of the team, and like because it's such a like it's known as like the loneliest sport, but because you have to go in the ring and do it alone, but you need the support of your teammates and your coaches and like your corner, and they kind of become like your family. So that's kind of not it's not just the sports side of it that changed my life, it's also the community that I got from it, because like my boxing team, whether it be like Team Canada now and like or Team BC and my club team Griffins, they really are like my family. So that's like the biggest reason I stuck to it. And um obviously like boxing, like I fell in love with the sport itself too, but it just made it so that I wanted boxing to be a part of my life forever. So I just kept going with the flow. My coach kept getting me fights, and I kept fighting. And it was like, okay, well, next fight we're going to Portland. Are you available? I'm like, yeah, let's go. Because like Portland or Seattle or
Yeah.
Calgary or wherever, these are the cities that are like, I don't know, anywhere between like 3 to 7 hour drive. And if we can make the drive, we just do the drive
Yeah.
and go and
Go
come
to
back.
close. So
Um,
how many fights do you have right now, like total?
42.
Jesus Christ, that is a lot of fights. Now I notice in a lot of your fights you have headgear on. Is that? I'm not sure the rules and regulations up there. Is that just where you're boxing situation, or is there a time when you're going to take that headgear off?
I've sparred without headgear. I personally hate the headgear so much. It's not
Same.
necessarily the most popular opinion. Like a lot of
Yeah.
people, especially a lot of girls, like it because it gives them like a sense of security. But I hate it. It doesn't actually do anything to protect you except for like cuts, maybe. Um, but and it's like headbutts and cuts.
Yeah.
But I think they can be a solution other than that like big clunky headgear. Like they could just as easily like at least make a way thinner one. But it's been weird, like the rules with IBA, like IBA is the International Boxing Association, they like took headgear off for everybody and then they put it back on. And it is a rule internationally, like under the International Boxing Association, you have to wear headgear, except now they've taken it off for men, for elite men, so over 18, at some of the bigger tournaments.
Excuse me.
Bless you.
Thank you.
And I think they said the reason is because it actually adds to the risk of getting a concussion, because that foam when you get hit, like it makes your head snap back a little bit more, which higher the chance of getting a concussion. But they took it off for men, but not women, which is stupid in my opinion, because like, so what, we can't get cut, but we can get a concussion. Like, that makes no sense.
No,
Um,
yeah, I dislike headgear so much. Like for
Me
me, it's
too.
a vision issue.
Oh yeah,
I
that's
don't
true.
see I don't see punches coming, and I do not like that. Like
Yeah, me same. I'm also like, it blocks my vision, and also it like, I love using head movement too, and like the punches that you wouldn't miss, like your head's a bigger target now,
yeah,
so you're still gonna get caught with shit that you wouldn't have gotten caught with if you weren't wearing a headgear. But I kind of accepted that it's a part of sport until like I go
yeah.
pro. I doubt they would take it off for women. I think it's just like people don't like to see girls bloody and stuff, which, like,
Some people
whatever.
don't. Some of
Yeah,
us
some
love that
people
shit.
don't. Yeah,
Hmm.
I think it's like more the general population, like, is like,
Yeah,
I don't know, like, let the guys not wear headgear, but like still keep it for girls. And I think
there's
also
definitely a
a lot,
standard there.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Also a lot of girls like do think that it's like it's protective for them and it helps, but it's been kind of proven that it doesn't. I guess, how badly is it like you don't want to get cut? Like, would you rather like increase the chances of getting a concussion and like see less and like have that giant thing on your head to not get caught? But it's, yeah, it's just
Yeah,
not
I think
my
they should.
preference.
Yeah, I think they should do away with it personally.
Me too.
So yeah, you are 42 fights deep right now. You are a Canadian national champion. Let's hear about that. How did that take place? How did you become a belt holder in Canada?
Um, so honestly, I would just say just going with the flow and just like like I was saying, from when I um started fighting, just would take every opportunity that my coach brought up. So like, we have a team of fighters every year. That team changes a little bit. You have to keep trying out to stay on team, or like you have to do this hell week. Um, so a lot of people kind of each year drop out and a couple new people join. Again, it's always like a cycle, but then there's like a few core people that stick around. So since I joined, I stuck around, and then every time there's an opportunity to get on a fight card or a show, um, Dave will usually ask who's available for it and who wants to fight. And if you're on team, then there's like a certain like obligation that you're at least supposed to fight like a certain number of times.
Yeah,
Otherwise, you're just wasting their time and wasting the coach's time. Um, they'll just like not have you in team and have you in the sparring classes instead. Um, so I kept taking on the opportunities, and then the provincial championships rolled around, and I won that as a novice fighter my first year. Because like, once you have 10 fights or less, you're a novice fighter, and then past 10 fights, then you're an open elite fighter. So my first year at provincials, I won as a novice, and then every year after that, I won as a um, elite open fighter. So once you're on the provincial team, so that's Team BC,
yeah.
then you're eligible to go to nationals. And if you win nationals, then you're on the Canadian team if you win gold. Obviously with COVID, that really like got fucked up the last few years. I went to my first ever nationals with only like 17 fights or something, and I got a bronze. And you need a gold or a silver to be on Team Canada. But
Yeah.
like, first year ever, like most of the girls who win gold have been like to like 7 or 8 nationals. So first year ever, like getting a bronze was like a good start,
Yeah,
getting
hell yeah.
like that experience, and then was training for the next year, which was 2020, and then everything shut down. So no nationals for 2 years, and then once things started to open back, and like I was lucky enough to get like 1 or 2 fights in that period of time. Um, it was a lot of like touch and go. Everything opens, shuts back down, opens, shuts back down. And then in one of those times that things started to kind of open, like they managed to like put on a show in Vancouver that I was able to get a fight at because like I really needed that for my sanity. Um, and it's just hard to like stay motivated and train when you don't have a fight coming up and
Yeah,
don't have like
very
the
true.
next big goal. Like when
Yeah.
I had fights always lined up, it's like, okay, great. Like I'm training, I'm gonna be on weight for this date. But in COVID, when everything's up in the air, it's like um, it's harder to do that. So we waited till like kind of COVID ended. I was in the gym the whole time. I was training. Um, Obviously, like all the gyms were closed, but they weren't actually closed. Like most of the boxing gyms were just like operating. But
Yeah, yeah, most of them stayed open. Yeah.
yeah, and yeah, I did lots of work, lots of sparring. I think in that time where a lot of people like nationally were kind of using to take a break or like everything's shut down anyway, so might as well like have fun and vacation and all that, or like not vacation, but like staycation or like
Yeah.
binge TV shows and eat and relax. I kind of just use that time to get ready for whenever shit opened again. So I was really in the gym. I was working super hard. I was like sparring with like these three guys, like, cause even my gym was shut down at the start for the first like shut down for real.
Yeah.
So like me and a few of the guys that I knew from the other gyms found a little place to go and just spar. And it was probably bad. It was too much sparring. It was like hard sparring every day, no
Yeah.
headgear. It was definitely not what you should be doing, but it helped me a
You had
lot.
to do.
And
You
like
had to do something.
yeah. So
Yeah.
in that time like I feel like I just got so much better. So when things started to open back up and I got the opportunity, like we started to like travel and fight immediately. Um, and then there were like these national team selections because there were no nationals, so they had to kind of pick based on like different criteria. So we had to send them like our fight footage along with a bunch of other stuff, and um, like this high performance team from Team Canada started to like rank us based on our performances.
Hmm.
Um, Obviously, there's like a little bit of a certain degree of error with that because there's like a few weight classes where like the rankings were kind of weird. Like a guy ranked first, who's lost to the guy who's ranked third or something like that. But with my weight class, luckily, like I've already beaten everyone who was there in my weight class, so I'm like, okay, for sure, I know like this is where I need to be. And I was ranked number one, and another girl was the ranked number two, because like there can be up to like team A, team B, team C or something in the national team. So I was picked as the team A, and we're just like looking for fights for me and stuff. And I got my first few opportunities to represent Canada internationally. Um, and it's only been the last year or year and a half that like I've really been given a lot more opportunity, and like I've been getting a lot of fights, going all over the world literally to fight. And now the next year's nationals is actually coming up, or the 2023 nationals is coming up in February. So that's the next big
Oh,
thing
that's
for me to
close.
just like, yeah, it's pretty close.
Yeah.
I just started my 6-week camp for that.
Oh,
So
okay. Nice. So you guys do 6-week training camps?
well, I think that's like a pretty standard amount of time
It,
for
it is.
like for a
It is.
big
Yeah.
tournament. But in amateurs, sometimes like it's sometimes you get like a 2-week notice for a fight. If it's a regular fight or something, I've taken fights on like a 3-day notice.
Yeah.
But tournaments like that, like when it's a national tournament, like obviously you want at least 6 weeks to.
Yeah. Most gyms I've talked to
Yeah.
do like a 6-week training camp. Some do 8 or 12. I feel like 12's a
Yeah.
lot. Way
Well,
too
for
much.
pro, like when you fight like 2 or 3 times a year, you can do that, and like it's eight
Yeah, it
or
does make more
9 weeks
sense.
or whatever. It makes sense. But I fight like I had 15 fights in the last year, so it doesn't. There's no way you can have like an 8 week
No,
camp
you
before
can't.
each one.
You just got to stay fight ready.
Yeah.
We
So
got
this
a.
one. Go
Oh,
ahead.
sorry, I got a question. Does the Canadian government fiscally support the AMI and pro circuit? So, do they put money for you guys to fight for the national team? Are they putting money into the circuits um, to help get you guys to locations, equipment, stuff like that?
No, no. The Canadian government sucks at funding sports, maybe except hockey, but yeah, no, they do not give a fuck. Like it's basically on us to
Yeah.
fundraise, to get sponsors if people want to like I'm only now like looking to kind of build certain sponsorship relationships cuz I really need that to like be able to sustain all this traveling and getting all this experience because it's all self-funded pretty much
Yeah.
like um my what's good is like my provincial team, so Team BC, the Canadian government and the national team funding is separate and it's pretty much zero. So we basically have to pay our own way for everything. Like last year, it was like we paid them a bunch of money and then they were paying for us to go to different places, but it was really our own money and like they're just like
Yeah.
taking that out of it. Um, and for Team BC, since I've gone on the national team and since I'm the ranked number one, the following year, like I can compete at nationals again, and each province gets to send two people,
Yeah.
but the national team also gets to send one person. So, I didn't have to be in Team BC anymore. I could just like represent the national team at nationals, and then I would have to win to hold my number one spot, but I think, uh, definitely like also you kind of are ranked the number one seed, so I think it kind of affects the draws a little bit. But since yeah, I didn't have to compete at provincials, which for my province BC just happened, but I did because Team BC gives us more help and funding than Team Canada because um especially over at least over the last couple of years like they're doing a little bit better with funding. So, for example, they just sent us to Mexico for a week, and I had two fights there. I just got back like 2 days ago, so we
Yeah, we
were
were
there.
talking about that.
Yeah,
Two,
yeah.
you had two fights in a weekend. Was it same day or different days?
No, no, no. We can't. We're not allowed to fight two times in the same day. But it was like a fight on one day, and then it was like a day break, and then another fight the next day after that. So, yeah, it was just like two separate shows. They just put it like tournaments. Sometimes you have to fight back to back to back every day,
Yeah.
like up to 3 or 4 or maybe 5 times at like big tournaments like, Worlds or Olympics. But um for
How did that go? How did it go this weekend?
it was great. So the first fight I fought the Mexican national champ, so they're number one. So it was kind of like the Canadian number one versus the Mexico number one, and I beat her in her own country, which is say
Nice.
I
That's
was
big.
definitely
That's big.
nervous.
Can
Yeah,
imagine.
I was super nervous about that one because like we all roll up to the gym and like she's like the only one there working with her coach, and my coach is like, "That's our girl you're fighting. Go up and like look at her bag work and see what you can pick up." And
Yeah,
like we all
absolutely.
kind of just like go upstairs. Everyone's like, "Holy shit, this girl looks like a fucking beast." And I'm like over there just like trying to contain my nerves and like I know like I believe in myself, like I know I'm good, but like, you still get nervous. Like at least I
Oh
do.
yeah.
I like I see that shit. I'm like, she can hit. Like that girl can crank.
No.
And I'm kind of just like trying to talk myself down. And like my friends, like a couple of my teammates and my team are like, "Yo, dude, like you're anything but a punching bag. Like you move your feet, you don't get hit. So it doesn't matter if she hits fucking hard." So I'm
Yeah.
like, okay,
That makes
that's
sense.
true. This
Yeah,
is
very
true.
true. Like it doesn't matter how hard people hit if they can't hit you. Yeah,
That's pretty.
absolutely.
Yeah. So I was yeah, I kind of just like pull it together. I was super nervous, but again, like it's always that like once the bell goes, I'm
That
like,
switch. Yeah.
it's yeah, the switch is on. And I'm just like, I find my rhythm, I find my flow, and I'm there. Like I'm once I focus in on the fight and I'm in my zone, it's just like it's different. There's I don't really notice much else, but yeah. So that was my first fight. Definitely a really good win. Since it was their number one, and then for my second fight, uh, a little rough circumstances because I got food poisoning the night of, like the night going into my fight,
Oh, that's
and
terrible.
also what sucks is like in Olympic boxing or amateur boxing, we have to do our weigh-ins the day of. So sometimes we get like 2-3 hours maybe between the weigh-in and the fight. So where a lot of people like in pro, you can cut a lot of water and stuff. We can't really do that, or we can't rely on that. Maybe like 2-3 pounds, but not much more. Just because like if we get like only 3 hours till your fight, you can only kind of rehydrate about 1 pound of water per hour. So if you got 24 hours, if people want to take it to the extreme, you can. Hey, it's Jade. Hey,
Oh,
Jade.
hey
Um,
Jade.
if you got like 24 hours between the weigh-in and the fight, you can technically cut 24 pounds of water weight, especially if you're bigger. Like, a
Yeah,
lot of MMA fighters and like pro boxers do that. That might be a little extreme, but and
I think that's
rehydrate
way
that.
extreme. Yeah, I
Yeah,
can't.
but I do know people who cut like 10 pounds, 15 pounds, like pretty standard in the pros. But
Oh yeah,
for
very much
us,
so.
yeah, like for us, like 3 pounds maybe for me, for myself, for someone who's like way bigger, like my teammate Johnny, like maybe 6 pounds. Um, but that's about the max. So I got food poisoning the night of my fight, and I am just like dying all night, like puking. At 5 a.m., I'm like texting my coach. I'm like, you guys are all asleep, but like I don't know if I'll like make it to the morning. Um, and I don't know if I can. I don't think I can fight because like
Yeah,
I'm
that's rough.
literally
Yeah.
just like dying. Like I haven't slept. I'm like pale as a ghost, and like just like I have nothing, no food in me, but I just like keep puking. Like it's just so gross. And my head was pounding, and the weigh-ins were like relatively late, so it was like 9 or something, and then the fight started at 1. So um I didn't have much time to like, and I couldn't drink water. Like imagine all this like be sick and I can't have water because I was like, if I
Because you're
put
right on weight.
yeah, yeah, I didn't
Yeah.
know because like it was a little bit like we weren't sure exactly what this new opponent weighed, so I didn't want to risk it by like going in heavier than I needed to be, and like not get the fight because of that. So I wasn't drinking water. I was just at at 7:30, I must have like fallen asleep for 45 minutes, and then I wake up still dying, and I just like go down and just take a bunch of gravel and like Advil and shit with like 3 drops of water. And we go to weigh-ins, and my coaches are like, okay, like worst case, like if you can't fight, you can't fight. There were a lot of like other fighters with us on the card,
Yeah.
so they're like, we don't want you to die like going in there. I still look like a ghost at this point, so just like waited till I can first opportunity for me to get on the scale to weigh in, so I could just go and eat
Yeah.
and drink and hydrate and like hopefully get some life back into myself, and then waited around for a couple hours because they were going late as they do. Um, and then I finally got to weigh in, and I got off. I like went straight like bunch of water, bunch of like fruit and like food and carbs and all that to just like try to get some energy. And I can't like it's funny because like when you're in like fight mode, like a lot like you can't even eat that much because like you also don't want to be like stuffed. But
Yeah.
um but yeah, like after like a couple hours, I started to like look better and feel okay, and I was like, this whole time in my head, I'm like, I've stepped on the scale, like I'm fighting. Doesn't matter what happens.
Yeah.
Like I just gotta like pull it together for literally 15 minutes to fight and get out. So yeah, we managed, and then they did a big fuck up where I weighed in. I weighed in under what I even weighed in on that first day, probably because like I was sweating all
You're
night.
throwing up and sweating and feeling like
Yeah.
shit, so you
So I could have been
lost
drinking
weight.
water. Yeah, I probably should
Yeah,
have been drinking water. I
100%.
weighed in way under. And then I go into fight, and they're like, "Oh, we messed up. Your girl's actually like 6 kilos heavier, which is like 13 pounds."
Yeah.
And they're like, I literally went through all of this for them to like tell us like 3 minutes before the fight that there was a fuck up and she was like 13 or 14 pounds heavier. And I'm like, you know what?
That is ridiculous.
Yeah,
13
like
pounds is a
that.
lot of weight.
Oh yeah, and that doesn't that shouldn't happen, and it normally
No.
doesn't. Like that was the first for me to hear about that like 2 minutes before the fight. But at this point, like me and my coaches are looking at me, and like my coach is like, okay, you know what? Fuck it. You spar people that heavy like all the time. You spar guys that heavy all the time. Just go in there. Like we've been through so much to now like not fight.
Yeah.
And I wasn't about to not fight, so I was like, yeah, fuck it. Um, so I went in there and then I stopped the girl in the second round. I think it was like crazy because partially I was just like I don't want
Wait,
to really.
you stopped her in the second? I like
Yeah.
fully expected all of that to end with you going, I lost because I had no energy. But you stopped her in
No.
the second? That's fucking incredible.
I honestly couldn't believe it myself after because like the
Yeah.
thing is um also we were a little bit mad because like a few of our team guys like they got robbed on the other show that there was going on, so we're all like we need to like get these people out of here and not leave it up to the judges.
Yeah, do not leave it to the judges.
So I was like, there was that running in my head. We're all like kind of Operation Bulldozer, and there was that, and also I still had like a bad stomach ache, and I was still nauseous even going into the fight. I was like, if she hits me in the body, I will puke. So I need
Or
to
worse.
just like, I was like,
Yeah,
I
they'll
was
call
like,
the fight if you shit all over the ring. Just saying. They will absolutely
Yeah.
call that fight. That'll be a wrap.
It was more. Luckily, it wasn't anything like that. Like, it was more just like
Okay.
nausea and like
Throwing
I felt
up.
like yeah. So I was just like, I don't want to puke in the ring. I need this girl. Like I need to stop this girl because like
Yeah.
I also don't know how much energy I have. So like the shorter I can make this fight, the better for me. So I gave her like an 8 count in the first round, but she recovered. So then in the second round, like yeah, I gave her an 8 count and then I stopped her like halfway through.
That
So
was awesome.
I was definitely happy about that because she was like obviously bigger than me too.
Yeah.
But
What?
yeah, that was a success.
So, a couple people have mentioned it. Your track to being a professional fighter. Do you, and you've mentioned it, going pro, or is that something that you're looking at directly and saying I'm going to be a pro fighter, or is it still like go with the flow? Let's just see what happens, train my ass off, and see who they put me in front of.
So for me, I hadn't really thought much about pro. My first few years of fighting, like to be honest, like it wasn't even really a thought because again, it was the whole thing of just going with the flow. It wasn't until I kind of like got on the national team or like fought people at that level and did really well against them, till I realized that hey, like I'm actually good at this because I always like not that I didn't know I was, but like I have a little bit of a like not enough confidence. And I was like, okay, I'm just kind of like doing this. I'm going along with it. And then I kind of like started to beat some high level people, and then I got on the national team, and I'm like, oh, this is a fluke. Like they picked me as the number one by some mistake. Like obviously,
Yeah.
like I'm gonna go to the vet, and like they'll realize that it was like a mistake and it was all like luck. And then I did it. I just kept doing good, and I'm like, okay, like this isn't a mistake. I actually ended up here because like I've been working my ass off for 5 years or 6 years or whatever. So finally got to a point like being on the national team that I'm like, no, like I fucking earned this. And yeah, and I like that's kind of the start of me thinking about like how far do I want to take it, and been thinking about the Olympic dream. Like we're working towards the Olympics, and I want to continue to be a national champion. I want to win this year's nationals, and then if I win the nationals, then I go straight to the world championships and represent Canada there. So that's another huge thing. Like if I can be a world champ, like that's the dream. That and like the Olympics, but at the same time, there's a lot of bullshit with amateurs that, I don't necessarily want to deal with forever. And like, once I accomplish some of these big goals in amateurs, like I do want to go pro now that I've kind of been around the sport for longer. And I just think it's the next step because I know a lot of people who, I know a few that have gone to the Olympics event and they just like stick around until the end of their career, essentially in the amateurs. And like, yeah, you can accomplish a lot, but at the end of the day, like, what's the point if you already made it to the Olympics, or like if you've already kind of like competed at the highest levels for years? Then to me, the next step is to go pro because might as well make some money off it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, chase the accolades right now. You know what I mean? The titles, the championships, the Olympics, and then chase the money here in a few years. It sounds like a phenomenal plan. Yeah.
Well, and that's like the point because like if I have the accolades, if I do accomplish the stuff I want to, and just keep going in this direction that I've been going at, and like get to the next step and the next step and the next step. And by the time, 2024, 2025 rolls around, like, I will have a name that's, like, I can go pro and already make, like, pretty good money compared to, like, if I were to go pro. Because anybody can turn pro. Like, I could have turned pro after having 3 fights, and no one would have heard my name, and I would have made, like, $500 on a fight. And it's, like, people can start there, and like Canelo or like in Mexico or a lot of parts of the world where like the pro scene is huge but the amateur scene isn't, so like, and they also want to get money to like feed their family, and there's a way to do that. You can fight pro and like work your way up through that, but that wouldn't have been an option for me. Like in Canada, we don't have a big pro scene. There's not many pros, much less female pros, much less like around my weight. So
what weight do you fight at?
114. Yeah. For Olympics, I might have to go down to I would have to go down to 110, because they cut my weight class out of the Olympics, which is stupid. Like they're like there's like 12 weight classes generally, and they've condensed it to 6 for the Olympics, so it just skips one. And the last series, it did have my weight class, and it was like the most competitive one, and they just decided to like split it. So like now half the people are going to be going up, half the people are going to be going down.
What makes you decide to go down instead of up?
I don't think I fight at 119 is the one up. I walk around 118, 119, and 114 is like quite easy for me to make. And the reason I could walk around lighter too, honestly, but the only reason I haven't is because then it's just I don't get fights. Like if I'm 119 and I'm fighting someone who's like 127, then they'll let that pass and I can get more experience that way. Whereas like if I'm walking around at 114, then I just like there's not as much competition left for me. So but internationally talking, like provincially, 119, I have no issue. Even probably nationally, like I feel like I would do really well as a 119er. But internationally, when you look at the European girls and like England and Uzbekistan and all these like big boxing countries, like their 119 girls are like 6 feet tall. So it's just like I would be putting myself at a big disadvantage. Like
Yeah,
those girls,
makes
like
sense.
they come from countries with a ton of funding and like ton of boxing experience and like um they nutritionists and like they do all this work to like make the weight. And yeah, I don't think 119 for me would be as smart, whereas like I think my size and like my style of boxing, it just like fits better with the 110, even though I'm not
Yeah,
necessarily
makes
excited
sense.
about like going down to 110. But if it's between the two, I think it's the smarter of the two. I think I'll just like be going down to like walk around at 114 within the next like couple of weeks, and then you know again the last couple of weeks start to slowly bring it down.
Yeah. So is your like that? That sounds like it makes sense to me because I know there's certain weight classes where people just tend to be taller than they do. You know, we got a couple people I know that are very tall. You know, 6'2", 6'3", and they're fighting at like 155, which is odd.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so as far as that, you going pro, like I said, it sounds like you're going to chase some accolades now in a couple of years going pro. Does your gym specifically have pro boxers that fight out of there, or are you going to have to look at somewhere else potentially, or would you stay at that gym?
Oh, well, yeah, no, we don't have pro fighters there. The thing with my gym is like I don't think there's any other gym really in Canada who has that. Maybe like one or two. But all the national team members like are pretty spread out because like you
Yeah,
can be anywhere in the country and be in the national team, minus the ones that's centralized, and anybody can do that. Like if you move to Montreal, and I may have to within the next year, um, if like I'm on that Olympic path. But since everyone's like spread out, there's one of my teammates who's been my teammate for like since I joined our fight team, and we've been kind of growing at the same pace. And he also made the national team this year, um, Johnny, and him and me are like the I guess the two highest level boxers at our gym right now. Um, and we both started out there, and we both like made it to this point. And our coach Dave, he's kind of like he knows that eventually that's going to be the next step for both of us. So he's been looking into like learning about the like pro business and the industry and all that, because the thing with it is like it's not as much about the boxing anymore. It's just like it becomes more about the business side of it and like navigating
it
through
does.
that.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, it's a whole different world. So I don't really know, to be honest. Like
Yeah.
there's also a part of me that is like, if I go pro, would I even want to be in Canada? Because like I kind of want to go to the States, maybe at least for camps or like for fights.
Yeah.
So
That would make sense. I mean,
yeah, just because like there's so much more competition. Boxing is huge over there, and like
and
places
money.
like yeah, money and the promotional companies that are there. If I get the accolades that I'm going after right now, then I would probably be able to like get get a good contract. Hopefully, that's the goal. With one of the top guys. So if I can do that and I can like have training camps in the States, like obviously there's just so much I don't know about the pro industry. And it's gonna be like a bit of a learning process, but I like right now it's Vancouver's not even a good pro scene, right? Like it's more so if you're gonna be pro in Canada, the place to be is probably Montreal or maybe Ontario, which is like eastern side of Canada, which is like
Yeah.
5 or 6 hour flight because Canada's pretty fucking big. So
It is. Can't wait to see
So
what you
yeah,
got.
I don't really know what the plan will be. It really kind of depends on how amateurs goes. But
Hmm.
but if I were to kind of have my pick, like ending up in like some of the like bigger boxing cities or states in US is probably the best choice. Like I don't know, Texas, Vegas, like
You
even like
have,
LA, LA.
yeah, yeah. You have an invite to move in with Jade in LA. Now, you'll probably get quite a few invites to move in after this podcast. um, Here's a question right here, and I don't know where that comes from. Do you know Kira Mokaganenko?
No, is she in Canada?
No, no, no. What's Can we get some more information on that Chief Wildfire? Um, quick question. Olympics. You mentioned the Olympics. How your path to that? Are you already set to go, or you set to try out, or how's that work?
Um, I mean, I'm in a good position to go, but no, like the Canadian tryouts haven't even happened. So
Hmm.
there's a couple different paths to Olympics for me. A is like I have to maintain my number one spot in Canada. So this coming nationals, um, actually this is more important for going to the World Championships, which for
Hmm.
women's it's in March in India. So I have to win nationals, whether it be at 114 or 110. To be honest, like I'm still making a final decision on that. But
Yeah.
um, then I go to compete at World Championships. If you win at one of the Olympic weight classes at the World Championships, so that's like 110. If I go to 110 before then and win at that at Worlds, which is like a pretty hefty task to begin with. But if I do manage to do it, I can go straight to the Olympics. That's like a clear path. If you win Worlds, you go to the Olympics. No other qualifying events are needed. Um, and honestly, like I, I feel like if I can, in a healthy way, like make that cut by then, that
Hmm.
might be something I would want to do. Like,
Yeah, entertaining.
I
Yeah.
I'm really confident in making 114. I would feel great. I feel strong. I've had a few fights like over the last year where like I was walking around really light, like 113 or 114, and I was like weighing under my fighting weight, and I'm still feeling super strong and like performing really well. So it's just like getting myself back to that point. If I can do that before this nationals, then I think that's like the smartest move to just do that and um, go beat everybody at 110 in nationals and go beat everybody in worlds and hopefully make it to the Olympics that way. But if not, if I go at 114 and um, win at 114, go to worlds, hopefully do really well there. Um, that's kind of a separate thing because like it's not one of the Olympic weight classes, but
Hmm.
there's a separate qualifying like round robin tournament in I think July, um, which is going to be held in Montreal, and that one's only going to be the Olympic weight classes. So by then, I will have like definitely made 110. Like confident like by June or July, like it's going to be easy work to make 110
Yeah.
because it's
Sounds
so
like it.
much time. And it's just like I can take my time and go slowly, and then compete at that round robin tournament, and it becomes kind of a little bit of like a point system, and the Team Canada coaches and the committee like they kind of decide based on those points if you qualify to go to the Olympics. There is like a certain political aspect which it,
Yeah.
it, it makes it a
I
little
can
less
imagine.
reliable.
Yeah.
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 So like for example, like me going to 110, like I'm the number one at 114, but going to 110 now I have to prove that I'm better than the number one at the
Yeah.
110 weight category. And also like the girl down below at the lowest weight class, like at 106, she also is gonna go to that same weight class because like it's 110, 119, 125. So the weight classes that are in between are gonna kind of go to that to the Olympic one to try to give it their shot for the Olympics. So now I have to prove that I'm better than the 106er and the 110er at in the national team, and anybody else who comes to compete at there, obviously, but mainly the girls who've already been ranked number one at those weights. So it's just like, it's not about beating them, it's also about like beating them so decisively that you actually get decisions. So because it's not, you know, they're good, they're skilled, they're like obviously they also want to have their chance to compete at the Olympics too. But
do you have
sorry, yeah,
no, I was gonna say, do you have a rival? Like, you are on a, you know, a national team. Do you have a rival there at your weight class that you've had to see several times, that every time you see her you're like, oh, that girl? No?
To be honest, like there's a couple, like there's a girl, and there's nobody I don't like in boxing. It's so funny because like all the people I would feel like I would have to fight, maybe there's only been like a couple of girls that I've fought who've kind of like talked shit and just like are disrespectful, and I'm like, I don't know, I don't got time for that. But most of them I'm pretty chill with. Like even the girls that I'm talking about, like the number one at 50 or which is 110, and the 48, which is 106. Even if I had to fight them, like I wouldn't love that because like I really like them and we're teammates. We're teammates like as the number ones in different weight classes, but like since it's Olympics and we all kind of smush together and under one weight class, like then we become competition. And I'm confident in myself. Like I feel like I could beat them, but like, you know, I it's not necessarily like because I want to beat them. It's just like I want to have my own shot.
There's no major rivalry there.
Yeah, there's a girl who I fought like 3 times over the last year or year and a half, Grace, and she was like one of the top contenders in under my weight class, like 114. And I think she's really good and one of the sweetest, nicest human beings on earth. And I hate fighting her. I was like, the 3rd time we're fighting, it's like, God damn, I don't want to fight you again, dude. Like, I really don't. But yeah, she's it'll be interesting because she's been getting better and better, so I definitely have to be ready for it. I've won all 3 times, but she's, you know, she's good.
She's there.
She's there. Yeah. She's at that level. There's another girl, like probably the only one of the only girls that I don't really respect because like she just like goes around and talks shit and like doesn't really respect any of her opponents. Like every time she loses, it was a robbery. So yeah.
Are you about to put her on blast? What's her name? What's her name now?
I'll just say that like she's from Alberta. But I don't know if she's gonna even like be able to make my weight class. Like I fought her once and there was a little bit of chatter about how she didn't think I was all that and like that like I don't know, I just outpointed her even though I also dropped her. But I think it's pretty obvious now. Yeah. But no, I think like if she makes the 114 weight class for nationals, then that'll be another interesting rematch. But I'm ready for it.
Yeah, we have. Not to cut you off, but we have a couple questions lingering about you lifting weights. What is your strength and conditioning routines? What do you do for strength and conditioning, if at all?
Yeah, no, I definitely do have a strength and conditioning routine. Like for a few years, I worked with this strength coach who I swear is probably the most knowledgeable strength coach I've ever come across. Like I'm personally a PT, so I'm a certified PT. Like other than boxing, I also train
Oh, that's cool.
people, do personal training, and like I coach boxing too, but
Hmm.
mostly like private clients. Um, and so I know my own way around, lifting weights and all
Yeah.
that. But even like PTs need a coach, especially because like to push you to that next level.
Yeah, absolutely.
For a couple years, me and my teammate that I mentioned before, who's also in Team Canada, Johnny, we worked with this guy, Liam Fisher. Shout out, he's amazing. He's one of the most knowledgeable PTs ever. Like I would probably put him like top 10 in the world, even though I don't know all other PTs, but
Yeah.
he's definitely like he's got a great program and it's very like individual to each person's kind of style and sport and everything. Like he was an Olympian himself, but my routine, like I worked with him for a couple years, then I stopped and I just started to do my own thing, like incorporating some of those same routines
Hmm.
into my own. um it's nothing, it's nothing super out of the ordinary. It's just like doing the proper things. Like you obviously want some basic routine. Like you want some basic strength. Like you want to do your squats and like like deadlifts and lunges and like few of the basics. But for boxing specifically, it's not so much about how heavy you can lift. It's about the explosiveness of it, how explosive you can be with it. So,
Yeah.
because like a punch isn't like how hard you like push a weight up. It's like how fast and like that speed translates to more power. So, um, there's a lot of that. A little bit of like Olympic weightlifting included into that. A lot of like mobility and like stabilizing exercises, like with med balls and with like just like a bar or yeah,
Yeah. Makes
even
sense.
some
A little bit of
body
everything.
exercises. Yeah,
Yeah, a little bit of
I
everything.
don't like overkill it with the strength training. Like a couple times a week, I do strength and conditioning. Um, and then there's like running and like cardio, and then there's the boxing training.
That's good. That's good. I mean, I find that you're right. Your form, speed gives you power, but I can't not lift weights. And I know a lot of these guys, like one of the guys who asked, I don't know who Chief Wildfire. Are you a street beast fighter? What's your fight name? I know this guy right here is Diesel, and he is just an absolute, he's just a tank of a human being, and he's definitely a bodybuilder. He's definitely built fit. Yeah, he does like a lot of bodybuilding, and so like some of these guys are just absolutely shredded and can lift a lot of weight. But it's hard to tell how well that translates into boxing, though. You know what I mean? In my opinion, speed, timing, accuracy is all way more important than power. But once you get all that down, you get the power. The power's there. So
No, for sure, and I think it's important. Like even me, like once in a while, I'll do my max weight. I'll do my like 1 rep or PR.
bro, Jade with the shots fired, Diesel.
I know.
Yeah, I love Jade. She does not like. She has zero filter.
I
She
love
does
her.
not.
Yeah, it's the
Yeah,
best.
she's so good.
Also, like you said, you guys hadn't met like before you guys connected. Same with her and me. We literally connected over like a Instagram story or like a meme or something about.
Yeah.
I don't even remember what it was about, but we could both relate to it. It was something about like what something that some of the shit that guys say to female boxers a lot. I think it was something
I
along
think.
those lines.
Yeah, I think I've seen that one. I think I know what you're talking about. Yeah,
Yeah.
look, Diesel.
But
Don't worry, Jade. I'm running now. I promise. Aw.
uh,
Yeah, yeah. She's super dope. And like we did we did the interview with her, and then we threw her in the Street Beast West Coast Facebook group, and you know, whenever she posts about her fights and stuff, she definitely gets a lot of support. And you are more than welcome to join the group too. I'll send you an invite, and whenever you have a fight coming up, keep us posted. Training, all that. But yeah, we're gonna go ahead and wrap up now. I'm gonna throw you soloed on the big screen. Shout out your socials if you want to. Also, if you have any final words for people, like you have 42 fights, you're a national champ in Canada, you have a very clear path to the Olympics, to being a professional athlete. So there's a lot of people that will watch this that can take advice from you 100%. So feel free to give any of it advice that you think some people might need to hear. And go.
Pressure's on. Okay, well, I'd say as far as advice goes, like if anybody wants to get anywhere with not just combat sports, not just boxing, but like honestly anything, but even more specifically boxing or combat sports, like it's the type of thing where like sometimes it's a little frustrating because you can work super hard for years and kind of like feel like you're not getting anywhere with it, but then all of a sudden, if you just stay consistent, then shit starts happening really, really fast. So it's one of those things I would say that if anybody wants to follow any type of combat sports, it's just about that consistency and like staying in the gym. Like I was saying, like when COVID was happening, the only thing that made me so much better post COVID than I was before COVID was because like I was in the gym every single day. And even like when I wasn't supposed to be, I was like sparring. So not saying don't take rest when you need it, but stay consistent. I honestly think like shit will happen, even if it doesn't for months or years. It definitely will like get to a point where you like elevate and get to the next step. So yeah, consistency. That's the key. And my socials it's mainly just Instagram, but it's just Nyousha _. So NYOUSHA _. And yeah, that's where you'll find me. I have teamnightboxing.com, but it hasn't been fully constructed yet. So once it's been constructed, teamnightboxing.com. But that's for later. And yeah, thank you so much for having me. I don't know.
Of course, you're welcome. Thank you for being on the show. I definitely appreciate it, and I'm having a lot of fun watching some of your fights. Like when I tell you guys that she's fast, it's fucking ridiculous. She's so fast. Like I have watched you throw 3 or 4 punches in the time it takes your opponent to realize that they're getting punched. It's so fast. It's so cool to watch. Yeah. So we're definitely going to keep an eye on your career at this point. We're super stoked to watch you do your thing. So keep us posted. And thank you again for being on the show.
Yeah, thank you so much. I had a great time. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Awesome. Have a good night.
You too.
All right. Bye. So, yeah, appreciate you guys tuning in. That was Nyousha. Again, she's the Canadian boxing champ, and she's super fucking slick with it. Not gonna lie, she's just very, very slick. If you want to learn boxing, just watch her box. She's very, very good at it. So, yeah, we got, like I said, Locked In is back. So next week, stay tuned. We have Fair Play on schedule. So he's absolutely a phenomenal character too. So you guys have a great night, and I appreciate everybody tuning in. Thanks for everything.